Okay, so there's been some names getting thrown around in the Bond community about who is going to be the next James Bond. And for many of us, this is the changing of the guard. We've been through this before. Or so we thought. We don't have our hero. James Bond died in No Time to Die. Where do we start over from here? Is it a full reboot? Is it a soft reboot? Are we going to redo all of the original films? Are they going to do period piece films? There's a lot that we could speculate on, but let's focus on the task at hand. Who's going to be the next James Bond? So I'm going to give you two lists. The first list is actually going to be who I think and want to be James Bond, who I think would be a great group of people who could pull off the character, who check off all the boxes, who have the chops, who have the looks. That's going to be like my personal list. The second list is actually going to be who I think Amazon is actually going to be looking at. So stick around at the end of the video to find out which list you landed in and who you think is going to be the next James Bond. So here are my top 5 choices of who I think should take over the role of James Bond. Number 5, Richard Madden. If you know anything about him, you know he's got presence on stage. He's got skills on television. He's got experience in film. So he's run the gamut of quite a few things. Obviously, he's most known for his role in HBO's Game of Thrones. More recently, he also did the Marvel movie The Eternals, which was a horrible movie, but in that film, the character that he played was very kind of stoic and had kind of a Bond vibe to it every once in a while. Like, you kind of got that feeling. Nothing is going to compare to his BBC miniseries that he's done, The Bodyguard. And if you haven't seen that, I think it's like a 6 or 7 episode miniseries where he plays the bodyguard to a politician. If you want to talk about an audition tape to play James Bond, it's incredible. So make sure you go check that out. And even though he voiced my favorite vampire of all time from Castlevania, Alucard, it doesn't help the fact that Barbara Broccoli and Michael G. Wilson, they've both gone on record saying that the next James Bond will be 6 foot tall. Richard Madden is quite short on that, coming in only at 5'9"3/4. That right there, that may give him the axe right off the rip. Which brings me to my next choice, and some of you may question why my number 4 choice is so low on the list, and we're going to talk about that. So, Rejé-Jean Page. He's a talented actor. British. He played the captivating male lead in Bridgerton. He actually just recently did a movie with former Bond girl Ana de Armas, as well as Ryan Gosling in the Netflix show The Gray Man. And this is what I was getting at. And this is why I put him so low on the list, because I don't know where he's positioning himself. The new Dungeons and Dragons franchise is coming out with their first movie. He's going to be a major character in that franchise. He is also, and this one actually does excite me, this could be an audition tape for Bond. They are rebooting the movie The Saint, which, as we all know, Roger Moore played the TV series version of. Now, I do feel like he would need to bulk up a little bit, but given how Hollywood has shown us that actors can easily get in the gym, put on the weight, especially with enough time, and we've got the time, I don't feel like that's going to hold him back at all. But what I do feel like might hold him back, again, same with Richard Madden, he's coming in under that 6 foot mark. Now, he's a little closer, 5'11". So they may give him a pass on that, but only time will tell. Number 3. Now, a lot of people are going to question also why this guy's so low on the list, and I struggled where to put him because I really love this actor, and I feel like he's a great choice. But I'm just going to go ahead and say it. Number 3, Henry Cavill. Mr. Popular himself. That's right. Superman. If you haven't seen the movie, The Man from U.N.C.L.E., you need to go watch that movie right now. His performance in that was spot on Bond. And it was almost like an audition tape for him. And I tell you what, there's a big part of me that just wishes back when they cast for Craig, that they just would have went ahead and cast Cavill. They had the opportunity. It was rebooting the franchise yet again. We could have had Cavill in Casino Royale. And think about it. Cavill's 39 now. Right now, the time of shooting this, he's only 39. Craig's 51. If we would have got 5 movies out of Cavill already, he could have surpassed Roger Moore in how many films he's done. Easily. How many films are we really going to get out of him? is it going to be worth it to look into him? And now we also have to consider the cost, because in the time that he's been doing other things, he's been Superman. You know, he's got The Witcher under his belt. He's got big franchises and contracts where he's making serious money now. So now if they want to get him, they're going to have to pay. And that cost may immediately be a deterrent. Because aside from that, he's got everything else going for him. He's got the talent, he's got the height, he's got the look. I just think he's going to cost too much. Okay, now we're cooking. Number 2, Aaron Taylor Johnson. Now, many of you may not know him by that name, but I guarantee most of you know him from his very scrappy and enthusiastic role playing Dave Lazowski on the movie Kick-Ass. That's right, Aaron Taylor Johnson played Kick-Ass. They were a lot of fun. They were dark. It was actually one of Nicolas Cage's, it's one of my favorite roles he ever played. It's a complete ripoff of like the Batman and Robin kind of dynamic, if you will, with Hit Girl, but Aaron Taylor Johnson knocked it out of the park. He was able to go from that wimpy kind of, I don't know what I'm doing kind of a kid, to the second movie, he is just absolutely jacked. And he came into that role ready for some serious action. Now, more recently, he's been involved in the Marvel Age of Ultron Avengers movie, where he played Quicksilver, and then he was also part of the Kingsman franchise with the most recent 2021 movie playing the character Archie Reed. So he's been getting into these franchises. He's been surrounding himself with talented people working in the industry, but I don't want you to think he's just all action. Back in 2012, he did a movie called Anna Karenina, where he was alongside Jude Law and Keira Knightley. And that was a very period piece, dramatic role. He was extremely good in that role. So go check that one out. And I'm gonna leave links down in the description to where you guys can kind of click around and find some bits and pieces on each one of these actors. And I can see him being kind of a combination of brutality of Craig, but also that like suave and almost like accidental confidence you get from Connery from time to time. And with his age being 32 years old, he's English, he's got the chops, he could do the action, he's got the look. Again, the only thing that's holding him back, he's 5'11", but I think he's a very strong contender to play Bond. And that brings us to my number 1 pick. And a lot of you may think I'm crazy when I say this, but if you follow me on Instagram, and you should be following me on Instagram, but you would have noticed earlier this week, I posted a picture, and I'm going to go ahead and post the picture here. This is Sean Connery next to Thomas Doherty. Now, I mean, you see what I'm seeing, right? It's pretty evident. I mean, they could almost be father and son. It's kind of ridiculous. He started off with Disney. Okay, so he's kind of thin right now. He would need to bulk up a little bit for this role as well. I don't feel like that's a major hurdle for many actors. He did the Descendants movies where he played he played this character called Harry Hook, where it was almost like a combination of Captain Hook meets Harley Quinn, a little psychotic, a little bit of a pirate, a little bit of a schizo. It was a little all over the place, but when he's focused and he's kind of getting into those action sequences, the look you see in his eyes, the grit that he's got, it's Bond all day long. I mean, it's really kind of creepy. Now, moving on, something that he's been more known for as of recent was the reboot of the television show, The Gossip Girl. Now, regardless of how you may feel, you know, his pansexual character in that show may not be screaming James Bond at you. There are moments where it is clearly just the way he talks to people, his body mechanics. It's Connery. It's so crazy to see it. And I think we really need to give this guy a chance, because as of right now, when we're filming this today, he is 27 years old. That's going to put him in perfect position. He's also Scottish. He's 6 foot tall. He checks all the boxes. He'll be 29 years old when they're ready to start filming. That gives him 2 years to bulk up. And if you don't think he's got it, let me throw one more at you. He just recently did a film. It's a horror film. He plays a vampire, and it's called The Invitation. And I'm going to leave a link to this one as well. The way he plays the cavalier playboy lifestyle in this film, if this doesn't sell you, nothing will. I promise. Go take a look at this. He's exciting to watch. It's very promising. And if they're going to reboot the whole franchise, I think he's got the best chance of anybody. So these are my top 5 picks. So what do I think is really going to happen? Who do I think Eon and Amazon are really considering seriously for this role? One person I've already mentioned, and I'll get to them last. I'm going to save them for last. But this one, and I need you guys to hold on with me on this one. I promise it's going to make sense. And it's been tossed around. Tom Holland. I know. Spider-Man, yes, I know. He's young. I get that. Tom is in a great position right now in his career. He just is. Okay? Let me explain this. Amazon stepping in actually opens up the money vault to where, who knows, we may get our first A-list actor as James Bond. Amazon didn't buy into this franchise. They didn't buy MGM to do nothing with it, to hope that a nobody is going to pick up the slack after how the franchise landed with No Time to Die. They may very well shell out the cash to give us somebody like Tom Holland or somebody like Henry Cavill. And Cavill's kind of in the same boat here with Holland. If you know anything about Tom Holland, the big reason why I'm going to recommend him, or at least someone just like him, because he has such an online presence. His Twitter, his Instagram, all of his socials and his fans, they all grew up together. They're all of the same influence age. And that is the age group that Eon has struggled to capture over the years with the Bond franchise. They've always been looking to attract a younger audience, and I think this is the time to strike. He recently did the Uncharted movie. I loved it. Was it kind of cookie cutter? Yes, it was. You had to kind of go into that movie knowing that. When he was the bartender, he sold it. He was kind of suave with it. It's really going to be the fact that he's got so much pull to get that audience. I think that's what they're going to lean on with Tom. My final pick, and I really think they're going to lean on this, Rejé-Jean Page. I think he's going to be the #1 contender because when he walked away from Bridgerton, when he announced that he was leaving Bridgerton, it was right in line with when they were wrapping up No Time to Die. I think he got a letter. I really do. I think they were already looking at him. I think they were already considering him, and I think the conversation's been had, and he's got to keep his mouth shut. He's also young. He's not hard on the eyes. He could beef up a little bit. We know he can do the action stuff. We know he can do the dramatic stuff, and he checks a lot of boxes on the demographics. Barbara went on record saying that the next James Bond will be a man of color. So if we're to take her word for that, RGP checks off a lot of boxes, including that diversity. And I don't think he's going to get it strictly because of that. His resume is there. I think The Saint is going to solidify him as this role. So guys, tell me, was this list awe-inspiring and eye-opening? Or do you guys just think I'm a crazed lunatic babbling about nothing? It's probably a little bit of both, right? Well, let me know down in the comments. Who is your pick? Thanks so much for watching. And as always, Merry Christmas, 007.